everybody. We are here for Week 9 college football. Hopefully, everybody is doing great as we mow through this college football season. Sad, but it is what it is. We are at least getting some really awesome games out there, and hopefully you had a good week last week in terms of fantasy and DFS. I came out of it as a net positive, so I will take that every day of the week. Bunch of plays worked out for us. I think the one regrettable play that I did not have many shares of was Bucky Irving, who absolutely nuked, and I had zero. So for me, wasn't able to take anything down. I was actually much closer and had a much more profitable day on FanDuel. If you're not playing over there, I definitely recommend giving it a shot. I personally don't think the tournaments are quite as good, but I think the game itself is easier. You have one less player to deal with, half-point PPR, all that. So, yeah, that's kind of my little opening rant. So hopefully, again, everybody had a good week. Let's go ahead and get to Week 9 here on the DraftKings main slate or early slate. Before we do, please hit that thumbs up button. As always, helps us out a ton. If you're not subscribed already, not sure what you're doing, hit that subscribe button. As we continue to hit college football every single week. And we also bring you all of our NFL content as well, free of charge on the YouTube channel or podcast network that you listen on. So please do that, and let's do it. So breaking down kind of this DraftKings early slate here, I think there's a few games that I really like that I'm going to be targeting pretty heavily, and some games that I'm just not going to be on. Pretty straightforward and simple. So Florida State at Wake Forest. Florida State's almost a 3-touchdown favorite on the road here. Houston goes to Kansas State. 58.5 total on that one, where Kansas State's 17.5 point favorite at home, which is a pretty wild spread in my opinion, and we'll get to that. Oklahoma goes to Kansas. The Sooners are a 10-point road favorite there. West Virginia goes to UCF. 59.5 total in this one. UCF as a 7-point favorite with John Reese Plumlee back in the mix. South Carolina, Texas A&M, 53.5 total, 53.5 total, 14-point favorite, A&M at home. Indiana, Penn State, 46 total. Penn State's a 32.5-point favorite. Good Lord. Duke goes to Louisville, where Louisville is a 4-point favorite at home, 46.5 total. Pittsburgh and Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a 3-touchdown favorite, 44 total in that one. BYU and Texas, 50.5 total. 17.5-point favorites at home are the Longhorns. Oregon, Utah, 6.5-point favorite for the Road Ducks here, 48 total. Georgia and Florida in the cocktail party. Georgia's a 14.5-point favorite on the road. And USC goes to Cal, where they are a 10.5-point road favorite as well. So a lot of road favorites here this week. I think the one thing that jumps out, there's a few games that I'm probably not going to have many, if any, shares on. That would include Indiana and Penn State. That's just kind of a scratch-off game for me. Duke and Louisville, not super interested there. I think Duke's defense is tough. I don't think the offense is quite right. And Louisville, Louisville's a good offense. They've got some guys playing, but again, I think Duke's defense is solid. I think they're going to keep them in this one. I think this game's going to be lower scoring than people think. Pittsburgh, Notre Dame, no real interest there. And then let's talk about the rest. So a few games that I can kind of nix right off the bat from my player pool, in my opinion. Some quarterbacks. Let's jump right to it. I think Caleb Williams is in a great spot here. He has been a major letdown the last 2 weeks. Obviously, the Notre Dame game as well as the Utah game last week, which I predicted, and I bet on Utah straight up on the road to win that game outright, which they did. Tough matchup for USC for sure. This will not be as tough of a matchup. Cal is playing better than people anticipated, but I think Caleb Williams is primed for a huge breakout game. I think he's been waiting for it. Sorry, 1 second, guys. I think Caleb Williams is primed for a big breakout game here. He is, like I say, he's been down the last 2 weeks. I don't think Cal is anything special on defense. They're okay, but they have gotten lit up this year by certain teams. I think USC is going to be probably the most electric offense they've seen all year. And Caleb's just, again, he's too good. They are going to break out of this. These last 2 weeks have just been tough matchups for them. When they play complete teams and good defenses, especially teams that are more physical than them, USC is going to get outmatched and they are going to get beaten. It's just plain and simple. It's how the roster is constructed. It's how Lincoln Riley teams always have been. But this is not one of those. So I like Caleb Williams on the road. He absolutely smashed Cal last year. If you remember that game, I forget how many DraftKings points he went for, but definitely in a great spot, in my opinion, if you can get up there to that 10-5 price tag. Dylan Gabriel, 9,400 for Oklahoma, I think is in a really good spot here. In my opinion, he should probably be top 2, at least top 3 Heisman Trophy favorites as of right now. Gets a great matchup on the road with Kansas defense who can't stop anybody. 10-point favorites on the road. I think Dylan Gabriel, in my opinion, is a better play than Caleb Williams, but I don't think you can go wrong with either one of those guys, in my opinion. Jordan Travis, Florida State, 9,200. I think Florida State here should run away with this one, but some people I've seen are predicting Wake Forest to keep this one a little bit closer than people might think, which has me a little bit more interested in Jordan Travis. I was a little bit unsure of playing him last week against Duke, just because, again, I talked about Duke's defense being pretty tough, but Jordan Travis is just a point monster. The guy is going to absolutely produce in every matchup. He's the focal point of that team. We have some questions at the receiver position on what's going to happen with Florida State this week, which may just consolidate things for me. But that might also mean Jordan Travis has to use his legs a little bit more in this one. Yeah, I think 9,200 is a very fair and good price tag for him. I will have some shares for sure. So that's up top. We move down a little bit more. Garrett Green for West Virginia has just been absolutely going nuclear the last couple of weeks. West Virginia has really found their stride and has been just absolutely crushing it lately. 8,100. I think he's in a really good spot here for a quarterback, again, that can run, use his legs, can pop 1 or 2 in the end zone, and definitely hit value for us here. So, definitely have some interest. Donovan Smith for Houston, I have some interest in at 7,900. Sorry, guys. Donovan Smith for Houston at 7,900, I think, is in a really good spot. That offense produces, and their defense sucks. It's exactly what we're looking for in DFS and in fantasy, a team that's usually trailing or playing from behind, or at least in a shootout type atmosphere. 7,900. I think Kansas State definitely has their way on offense against these guys. The problem I can't play Kansas State, the reason for it is they've got like 4 or 5 guys that completely and evenly split the workload, especially on the ground. They've got Giddens, they've got Ward, they've got now 2 quarterbacks that run. That's 4 guys just in the ground game that get touches and everything. I think it's a tough spot. John Reese Plumlee, 7,200 for UCF, definitely in play for me as always. That offense looked great last week versus Oklahoma. Expecting him to have another good one this week against West Virginia. Malik Murphy is the one who's going to be the biggest question on the slate. 7K even. I think, I don't know. I don't know what to think. He is a highly sought quarterback, I guess. The minute they signed Arch Manning, every team in the country seemed like they were calling this kid, trying to steal him from Texas and get him in the transfer portal. He decided to stay. Now he gets a shot. I think, as we've seen, he's going to have a full week of practice here. I don't think the points have really changed too much in this one. Maybe Texas would be favored by a little bit more. The total would be a little bit higher, but I think a lot of people are thinking Malik Murphy can step right in and kind of keep this offense rolling. So at 7K, I think there's definitely some opportunity to take some shots here on this kid. Big, strong, athletic guy. Yeah, I'm going to have some shares and shots for sure. Being that BYU's defense is not amazing, I think Texas can definitely put up some points here. So the one big one that I wanted to talk about, not big one, the one guy that I'm going to take some shots on way down here low is Max Johnson for Texas A&M. He is 6,500. His weapons are also extremely cheap this week, and they get a South Carolina defense that cannot stop a soul. So the environment and matchup is there for him. At 6,500, if you're going to be playing Caleb and Gabriel and Travis and you want to get some of those high price stacks into your lineups, I think you may have to consider him or Murphy. And again, I'm not saying Max Johnson's amazing, but I think that offense is due for kind of a breakout game. I think in this matchup, they could open it up a little bit more. And I think Max Johnson at 6,500 is very much in play. So that's kind of my quarterback player pool this week. Running backs, I told you before, I made the mistake of not playing Bucky Irving last week. I do not like this matchup. Again, I think Utah is the best team potentially in the Pac-12, right there with Washington. Oregon's obviously right there as well, but man, Utah just wants to get in a phone booth and fist fight you. Every single week, that is what they do. They're going to out-tough you. They are not going to get pushed around in the box. And I think Oregon is able to do that to a lot of teams. So this matchup definitely makes me nervous. But he's so damn good. Watching him last week and him just crush my lineups as other people had him, man, it was just a complete regret. He is so explosive and game breaking. Any touch he can take to the house. So I think 7,600 will probably be a pretty contrarian play. And for his talent, I think you may have to take some chances on him this week. Again, I do not like the matchup. If I see his ownership picking up and he's going to be fairly chalky, I will fade him and roll the dice again. But I think you have to consider him this week. Jonathan Brooks, same thing. I have a feeling they're going to lean on him a little bit more in this matchup with Malik Murphy taking the helm at quarterback. 7,500, the guy's just an absolute workhorse and has been fantastic all year. Dewan Edwards for Georgia, 7,300. Same thing without Brock Bowers in this matchup. He gets a soft Florida defense here in the cocktail game. I think Edwards, I think he's a good play. He's in line for 100 yards plus. He's in line for multiple touchdowns probably. I think he's going to be someone you definitely have to consider this week. Florida hasn't been able to stop anyone this year. With losing Brock Bowers, again, I think Georgia leans a little bit more on the running game in this one and just pushes Florida around. So, yeah, I have some interest at 7,300. RJ Harvey for UCF looked fantastic last week versus Oklahoma. He's got a great matchup this week, 6,200. The price tag is just right. Definitely find some way to get RJ Harvey into some of your lineups. I think Le'Veon Moss for Texas A&M is a really good play for the same reasons I talked about Max Johnson. 5,200. He's definitely their lead back there. I can't seem to get him right. Every time I play him, he has kind of a down game. Every time I don't play him, he has a pretty good game or a great game. But I'm going to play him this week. So take it for what it's worth. Hopefully I can get him right this week and I don't steer you guys wrong. But Le'Veon Moss at 5,200, I think is in a really good matchup here. Sion Vaki for Utah. I think you have to play this kid. He is freaking unbelievable. If you don't know kind of what's going on here for Utah, Sion Vaki was a really awesome high school running back and receiver. He was a two-way player, obviously, in high school, like most guys are. Goes to Utah as a safety. Utah starts losing offensive players left and right, mainly at the running back position, so they need bodies. They move this kid to running back, and he is just absolutely nuked the last 2 weeks. He had like 60 or 70 yards on the ground last week, but he had 150 yards receiving. The week before that, he absolutely went ballistic. So I know Oregon's a tough matchup, but I think Utah's finding a creative way to get this kid the ball, especially in the passing game out of the backfield. I think Utah, they're going to have to score some points. They're not going to shut Oregon down this week. I think Vaki at 5K is like almost a must play, in my opinion. I'm going to have him in a ton of lineups. Desmond Claiborne, I think for Wake Forest is interesting. Florida State does not have the best rush defense in the country. Far from it, actually. They're ranked very low. At 4,800, I think you could do a lot worse. I think Wake Forest is going to have to find some success on the ground if they want to keep this one close. And then the only other situation I wanted to talk about is West Virginia. C.J. Donaldson at 6,100. I think he's a damn good player. He's West Virginia's lead back. But last week we had Justin Johnson Jr. come back from injury. He is 3,900. I think Johnson had like 13 or 15 carries, something like that. I think both of these guys are very much in play. It just depends on how weird you want to get with your roster construction, who you can afford and whatnot. But I think Johnson's a pretty good pay down. He's volatile, right? Like, I don't know why he had so many carries. I don't know what the plan is moving forward. If we're going to see an even split backfield, I think why not just take almost the 2K discount here and play Justin Johnson? But we'll see. I just want to talk about that one real quick. Moving on to wide receiver, Keon Coleman, if Johnny Wilson misses, becomes one of the best plays on the slate, in my opinion, this week. At 7K, he is expensive, but dude, the guy is a freak show and could absolutely put up, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, and you're in major trouble if you don't have him this week. So Keon Coleman at 7K. Even with Johnny Wilson, he's a really good play as always. But without him, I'll be jamming him into lineups for sure. Xavier Worthy for Texas, I think, is a good play, 6,800. Again, we're unsure what Malik Murphy is going to look like here. So I think you got to take some chances on him. Matthew Golden for Houston return. So if you're liking Houston this week, I think you can look to Golden as well as Joseph Manjack, who's kind of their slot and third receiver at 5,700 and Golden being 65. Both of those guys, I think, should get run here and have a pretty good game. Drake Stoops for Oklahoma and Nick Anderson for Oklahoma are the two guys that I want to be pairing if I'm playing Dylan Gabriel. Stoops is 6,200. Nick Anderson's 5,800. Javon Baker for UCF is the guy that I want to be pairing John Reese Plumlee with. He's 5,900, had a fantastic game last week. I'm going right back to the well with him. Evan Stewart for A&M has completely started dipping in the price tag. He's 5,800 now. That's just so cheap for a guy his talent level. Yeah, man. I have some interest in this A&M passing game this week. So 5,800 for me is way too cheap. I'm going to be playing some Evan Stewart. I'm going to be playing some Anais Smith at 5,300. I think both of those guys are definitely live this week. If you look at Georgia, Dominic Lovett is 5,700. And I think, oh my God, forgetting his name right now. Totally blanking. Dominic Lovett's my favorite for Georgia, 5,700. The other guy there in the slot receiver position is definitely in play. But basically the point being is Georgia has to find Luke McConkey. I'm sorry. McConkey, Lovett, both of those guys are right in the same price tag area. I think you have to consider both of them as someone has to soak up some Brock Bowers target shares. The other guy to keep an eye on is Oscar Delp. Top-rated recruit, as is everyone at Georgia, but he's the direct backup to Brock Bowers at 3,400. If they think this kid's pretty capable, he's going to step right in. They may not force him the ball, but he's going to be involved in just the same amount of routes and the same type of offense as Georgia has been running with Bowers. So it becomes an ultimate punt play. My guess is he's going to be very popular, but just keep an eye on that one. I think Jeremiah Hunter for Cal and Taj Davis are very interesting, 5,500 and 4,900. Just keep in mind, USC can't stop anybody. So as much as we don't love Cal, I don't really care. I'm going to be playing them because I think they're going to be trailing, and they should get a lot of action this week. I think both are pretty good mid to pay down options. Chase Roberts for BYU, I think if you're going to go that route and you want to bring back some Texas, I think Chase Roberts is the guy at 5,100. I think Arliss Boardingham for Florida is interesting. He is a freshman there for the Gators. Again, we're not expecting them to have major success like they have the last few weeks with Graham Mertz and having to play this Georgia defense. But if they're going to be trailing and they have shown they're throwing the ball 35, 45 times a game, I think Boardingham becomes a really interesting play at 4,400. Again, hopefully trailing, and this tempo has to be picked up. I don't anticipate, like any team, Florida's going to have success on the ground here. So I think Boardingham's a very nice play at 4,400. And then we talked about Florida State and Keon Coleman. Jaheim Bell, as always, at 4,200 becomes a fantastic play if Johnny Wilson does indeed miss. That's my player pool this week, guys. Fairly tight. I'm not getting too crazy, I don't think, but I'm trying to stick it between kind of the Oklahoma, Florida State, West Virginia, Houston, UCF, and Texas A&M is kind of my main stacks here. So good luck this week. Again, if you're still listening, please hit that like button if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. And we will have some more NFL content coming out this week. Where Jim, my partner here, has been absolutely red hot in the showdown streets. And then Joey and his betting crew has been absolutely scorching hot on the gambling side. So good luck to everybody this week again, and we'll see you next week.